What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandel. I'm coming to you live today from Scott Woolley Studios in a very beautiful Delray Beach, Florida. I don't know where you guys are, but it's beautiful down here in South Florida. And I have a special treat for you guys today. One of my best friends in the world, closest associates, business partner. He's family, and he's my personal attorney. And he knows all the secrets. I want to introduce you all to my brother from another mother, Mr. Mark Astor. My brother, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here with you in the Ross Mandel podcast studio.
It's so great to have you here.
Now it feels real because I've been watching it online, but now I'm here. It's the real thing.
We are the real thing. Now, I want to introduce everybody to you, some of the 50,000 people that might not know who you are and what you do, because he is the friggin' man. He is the best, and you can forget the rest. You need an attorney, and you're in South Florida, pretty much anywhere in this country. If you need advice, this is the guy to talk to. He is a friggin' fantastic person. I detect an accent, Mr. Astor.
Yeah, originally from the United Kingdom. Been here in the U.S. since 1987, predominantly in Florida, but as you know, a few other parts of the country where our paths have crossed once or twice.
That's true.
It is true.
But let's turn the dial back a minute.
All right.
Okay, so you're about how old a guy are you?
I'm 58.
58 years old. You could be my baby cousin.
Something like that, yeah. Well, a baby brother, but okay, I'll take cousin.
I'll be 68 next week.
And look at you.
Is that crazy?
You got more piss and vinegar than I think I've ever seen you with.
A lot of piss, a little bit of vinegar.
Well, this is your second coming. This is the Phoenix.
This is the third. This is Ross 3.0. Forbes did a great story about me. It was released in May of 2005. It was Ross Mandel's Back with a Flair. That was 2.0. So now it's 3.0. This is the third and final act, bro, of the Ross Mandel life story. So you were born in the 60s?
So I was born in 67.
Okay.
Lived in the UK until just before my 21st birthday.
So wait a minute. So you were raised in England?
North London, yep.
Really? So you went to school?
I did some schooling there, but most of my schooling was here.
Okay.
In the US.
And what was a young Mark Astor like? Because I know the man Mark Astor, but what was the young Mark Astor like?
It's been a journey for me, so it took a little while. I would think I was brash. At that age, at 2021, you think you're never going to run out of time.
It's true.
And the world's your oyster, and you can do whatever you want. And then all of a sudden, boom, the time's gone, and you realize,
it's time to get real.
Time to get real, right?
Life becomes real. It's like all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck? Where'd the time go?
My late father used to tell me, the older you get, the faster it goes. But I didn't realize that till I got a little older. And now the time is just, we're already in March.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable.
And your dad, Lionel Astor, who was a man that I admired so, and pictured, I used to say to him, I want to be like Lionel. That's who I want to be. I used to tell Stephanie, every time I saw your dad, every time we ran into your family, every time we were at a holiday or at the beach club, etc., I was so impressed by your dad and the way he, and your mom obviously, but the way he conducted everything and handled himself, and our interactions. Him and I had the privilege to get to know him a little bit even before I met you. And I just, every time I saw him, I said, that's who I want to be.
My dad was a real family man. There was only two things that really mattered to him: family and business. And he was not an educated man. Worked since he was 14. Everything he ever had, he earned. And I think that he had a lot of respect for you. And I think he really admired you, especially when, the proverbial shit hit the fan with, what you've been through the last, since 2009. And, my father used to refer to you. He said to me, that Ross Mandel, he must be made of steel. Because, what the federal government was doing to you and did to you, I think would have crushed most people. It really would have done. The fact that you're even here,
right,
so full of vigor and life, and the phoenix coming out of the ashes, it really is a bit of a miracle. You know that, right?
Listen, more than anybody I know, because they did crush me. Brutal. They take over countries, and here I am put my hands up to the United States of America. You realize that when you go to trial. I went to trial for 6 weeks, and every day you walk in and there's like an overhead projector. Of course, it's not prejudicial in front of the jury. The United States of America versus Ross Mandel et al. I never wanted to be et al. So bad in my life. You know, et al. Just means others in Latin. And I just would have loved to be one of those others. Even my co-defendant only got 5 years, convicted of the same exact charges I was convicted of. Same trial, I got 12 years. But yeah, the federal government is no joke. The Southern District of New York is known and has been known for the last 100 years when they took the mafia out and did all those things back in the 20s and 30s with prohibition, etc., as being unlawful, aggressive, practically a criminal organization. And we just saw that with Pam Bondi in the Epstein files. She is the Attorney General of the United States. She's the head of the DOJ. She told the FBI, bring me all those files. And the Southern District of New York withheld the files. They gave them some. And she's like, where's the rest? And I said, nah, we're not going to produce them. So she fired him. She fired the head guy. But these are the people. They're doing this to the Attorney General, their boss. Imagine what they're doing to a guy they say is, that they decided to indict and pick on. I say they're cruel and brutal. It's just not reasonable.
Yeah, these are very interesting times from many perspectives, political, legal, all of those things. But there is something very different about being in a federal courtroom as opposed to state. I mean, I spent most of my time
correct
in the state system, but we went into federal court on one of the case,
yes.
That FOIA issue that we worked on for you. And you walk into a federal courtroom, it's like walking into, it's like a mausoleum or a temple. Right. There is something almost, I don't know.
Holy almost.
Holy. That's the word I'm looking for.
I really get
When you
it.
are in a federal courtroom, there's a certain energy in the courtroom that you don't even want to take a step out of line.
Right. I was in court, and we went through 2 years of motion practice. But, that's different. It's you in front of the judge. There's a couple of people in the gallery listening. But when you go to trial, they pull out all the pomp and all the they use every home court advantage that you can think of. So it's no wonder they have like a 99% now conviction rate. Because you go into that room and you toast. You're toast. It's like a gladiator going into the arena. The Romans control everything. But this is about you today. I want people to get to know you because the more I get to know you, having known you now for 25 years plus, is to love you, bro.
Thank you.
To know you is to love you. You're very, very humble. You're a very complex man. And you're also very primal in some respects. Cerebral. You're an orator. You're a young man growing up in London, right? In North London.
Yes.
You had a privileged life, yes?
I think we were certainly spoiled.
Your dad was a successful man.
Very successful.
By any standards.
Yep.
He went public back in the 60s, right?
Would have been 70s, early 80s, yeah, which was uncommon. I mean,
Right. It's huge.
Yep, so it was a big
deal. To be able
deal.
to go public. I was explaining to John earlier today, if you can be part of just one IPO your whole life, wow.
You've done what, 100?
More than 100, yeah.
I've
taken myself public more than once. I mean, yes, it's but it's like winning the Super Bowl. It's the height of the financial profession to be part of an IPO, to do an IPO. I mean, if your company gets taken public, it's literally like winning an NBA championship, a Super Bowl, and all that. That's how a lot of guys in the financial world, we call Wall Street, what they call the city in London, that's like a measuring stick for a lot of guys in that business. He went public, That's how they introduce a guy, like it's a big fucking deal, It is a big deal.
So you're like basically the godfather of public companies because you did so many. You spoke in front of Palm. I mean,
there's very few people that could claim.
Is there anybody that's ever had a resume like you? And I don't think people realize that.
Not too many people. There's none that I could think of. There were some, but the guys that have a resume like me are on a private island right now, in their helicopters, in their private jets, on their 300-foot yachts, and they're not talking about it. So because the government and the industry turned on me,
They're afraid to talk about it, I'm sure.
that you don't want anyone to know anything because it's a big fall down. So because everybody turned on me in an odd way and did what they did to me, I feel privileged to be able to talk about it. I want everybody to know everything, and I'm going to share and reveal secrets and peel away layers of the onion. At the same time, I'm building and rebuilding a life and a business. So now you're in London. What was young Mark like? I mean, did you work? Did you just go to school? I know you're a fighter and you work out. All that was, were you like that when you were young?
No, I was the skinny Jewish kid who was getting his ass kicked. That's why I had to learn to fight.
Okay, I like that.
And my father used to say to me, listen, at some point you're going to have to learn how to protect yourself. Because, when you're a Jewish kid growing up in Europe, and this is back in the 80s.
It's much worse now. But
much worse now. And we see what's going on in this country, unfortunately, at the present time. You have to learn how to protect yourself.
Did you take any self-defense
I
stuff
did.
in London?
I did. I did a little judo. I did some taekwondo. I did another system called mugendo, another type of kickboxing type art. But when I came here back in 2004 now, I discovered Krav Maga, but I also found a guy that could teach it because
Krav Maga.
Yeah, which is the Israeli system. It's what they teach their military and special
deadly,
forces.
it's controlled violence, as you say.
It is, if it's done right. But it's like any system. The system is only as good as the instructor. So I got very blessed to find a great instructor. So
right. Rick, right?
Rick Side, yep. Who I'm told is going to be back in Florida soon. So
Rick, little shout out. Mark has always said the greatest things about you, and I've met him. I went to one of your classes. I was very impressed. These are killers, everybody. This is not a martial art where they compete in a cage or in a ring. This is what special forces, Green Berets, Army Rangers use to hurt people. To engage enemy and hurt them and kill them and maim them. These guys don't fool around. It's very serious. When I see Mark teaching Krav Maga, I'm like, I'm wrapped. Before all my injuries, I would have loved to just train like this with you.
Well, I'm falling apart too, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
I need new body parts. They're telling me it's the craziest thing in the world. But so you're in London, rough spot, young, Jewish. You're still a kid. You're a teenager.
I was a teenager.
And what happened? Your dad said one day we're packing up the castle and we're all going to Boca Raton, Florida.
So
what was that like?
So in the early '80s, my parents owned a condo down in Inverary.
Okay.
And we used to come here for Christmas and summers and Easters.
The weather sucks in London.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's an island in the middle of the North Atlantic. I mean, you're lucky if you get a few days of sun.
It's really horrible.
And then '87 came around. They came here supposedly on vacation. They came home and said, "Hey, we're moving to Boca Raton," which I hadn't heard of. And back then, everything was still brand new. It was all under construction.
Correct,
everything was brand new.
Boca Raton was really.
If you lived west of 95, you were living in the boonies.
You really were. It was like the Everglades.
441. Where's that? Do I need to take a flight out there? It's so far. It's considered so far away.
I so get it.
So they said they were going to move here, and I said, "Okay, that sounds good." And I said, okay, well, can I take a couple of weeks? I want to go check it out. I never heard of Boca. So while I was here, I reconnected with some friends that I'd known from when we had a condo back in the early 80s. One of them was a friend of mine. She was up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan. Dead of winter, so this would have been December of '87. And she said, hey, why don't you come check out the place? So I did. Flew up there, spent 2 weeks with her.
In Michigan? In
Michigan, in the dead of winter. I had no winter clothes. So I had to go buy a few bits and pieces.
Right.
And
it's freezing up there.
It was cold. A friend of hers took me to a basketball game, and I said, okay, this is what I've always imagined school would be like.
Right.
So I filled out an application to transfer in, and I did, and I never went back.
So University of Michigan, undergrad?
Yep.
And then you also went to law school?
I went to law school down here at Nova, and I did a master's at up at American University in D.C.
He's a very educated fellow.
I don't know how that much smarter than me, but each one seemed to serve a purpose.
But that's so great. Now, did your dad buy a home right away? What was that?
Yeah, so they had a house. They had a house, and they lived in it for 10 years. And I went off to college. My brother went off to high school. My sister had a tough time settling down. She went back to England for a little bit until she came back, met her husband.
Now let's talk about the family. You have an older brother, no?
No, my brother is 6.5 years younger than me.
Younger brother.
Yeah,
and he's a doctor now.
He's a doctor.
I remember he was a doctor of Eastern medicine, but the last time I saw him, it was at your wedding.
He was an acupuncturist.
Now he's a doctor of Western medicine too.
Yeah, I think he figured out it's really hard to make a living as an acupuncturist.
It really is, unless you're Chinese and you're a lady, and
So He took out a bunch of, boatload of student loans, went back to school, and he's been working in a hospital for the last 9 years.
Lovely guy.
Yeah.
And the sister Michelle, who I know, intimately, really, and her ex, who's now her husband, and this and that. A little bit of a wild sister, but I mean, it makes the family more interesting. Now you're the older brother, huh?
I am the oldest.
Oh boy, so you got to take a constant.
Yeah, but that's how we all met, right? Because of the
Correct.
kids.
Yes, because of the kids, and my daughter, my oldest daughter Skylar, who's actually moving today, was in a preschool, and your sister's oldest, Sydney, was in the same preschool. They were in class together. Ready, Set, Grow Academy. That's what it's called, on Jog Road in Boca. Private school, preschool, $10,000, $12,000. This is back 25 years ago. She's 25, my daughter, so like 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And the families met, and I'll never forget, we were invited to Marcella Roberts' house for a party.
Oh my God,
She was having a Halloween party. This is like October of 2003 or something. And, it was like an over-the-top party. They really, spent $25,000 decorating the house, and they had a party planner. It just was really amazing. I loved it. Marcelo, what's shaking? David, little shout out. And there's a guy standing off to the side, like by himself, and looking bored, a little bit like a fish out of water type, that thing. Big guy, like 6'3", 6'4", whatever. So I go over to him. I said, so you seem about as excited as I am. It's the kids are running around having a great time. All the women are together getting to know each other in this fantastic environment. And I met Kevin, Dr. Gilbert, your brother-in-law.
Yep.
A member of your family for umpteen years, and you have 3 beautiful nieces.
So I've got 3 with that. They've got 3. My brother's got 2. And I have 2 grandnieces, so it's all women in my family.
And
so
some stepkids now, right?
Well, I have a stepdaughter and a stepson. So
right. So you got a whole tribe you're looking after, essentially.
life has it's been some journey.
They could say robust. You have a robust life today, right?
I do now.
Yeah,
I do
you
now.
do now, but it wasn't always like that, right?
I would say 11 years ago, I was very lost.
11 years ago.
I started my current practice
Right.
February of 16 out of the local library here in Boca. They had free Wi-Fi. I was broke. I had no money to start a law firm, but I had an idea.
I love it. It was a great idea, by the way. A great idea. 11 years ago, I just want you to know, I started a new life, too. I checked into federal prison 11 years ago, if you can imagine. I'd rather be at the library hanging out with you.
Yeah, but you know what? It was my experiences beforehand that I think brought us together.
Yep. We met through your dad came to see me in my office. Michelle and Kevin got to know me a little bit, came to my Christmas parties, and met some of the people that worked for me and alongside me, etc. And I had a private equity office in Meister Park for
I remember that.
5 or 6 years, and we had a medical device arena and a clinic and very cool stuff. And your dad came up with your brother, and they were opening up a big fancy place in Fort Lauderdale. I advised against. I said, don't buy anything, don't sign anything. But not everybody listens, I can only dispense great advice, and I try to follow my own advice as much as I can. But we became friends, and I'll never forget when I was flying out to L.A. I can't even remember exactly what for.
We bumped into you at the
And
airport.
I
Now
ran
that
into you
was
in the airport. We
so
were flying together.
Well, that was when I had moved out to California. I think I'd run away with what I had left after the '08 crash, and I spent 3 years out there having a good time.
But you also got admitted to practice law there?
No, actually, I took the California bar 3 times.
Did you?
I took it twice out there and failed it, and then the third time by that time I'd run out of money, so I came back.
Really?
And I studied for it here. I took it a third time, and I got within a percentage point. And at that point, I said, okay, maybe the universe is trying to tell me something, because I think I studied for 3 weeks for the Florida bar and passed it first go. The California bar, I think all in all, I studied for a year, so I didn't end up passing the bar exam, but. When you spend that much time learning, contracts and family law and civil procedure and criminal,
right.
If anything, it actually helped me because I learned so much more law that has just given me a much better basis of.
So in the law, and this is something I don't think a lot of people understand, we have federal law, which governs, right, as a body of law, but there's state law.
Yeah, I mean, we have obviously federal, state, and sometimes you'll have, local county ordinances, right? I mean,
Right. City law,
yep.
So the state of Florida law, you found easier to test on.
The bar exam was easy, but maybe that was because I'd just gotten out of law school,
Yeah.
20
Of course.
plus years out. Wasn't so easy to study for that exam.
Your head's not in school again. You're not in school mode, like test mode, right?
Yeah.
But crazy, bro.
So
I know my daughter. My daughter was taking the LSATs, and I'll never forget when she started studying. I said, "Let me see that," and I was like, "Oh my God!" One question, I was exhausted. It was one question with like 30 parts, and I was exhausted. I was like, this, that. There's so many. It's
but meanwhile, she's in. So
right,
it's,
I found it to be very sketchy, but I'm not used to working. My brain is not used to working in that sort of detail right now. I do different things.
you're a big picture guy.
Well, I also do things that I'm very familiar with now that I've been doing for 30 years. So if you ask me about, corporate law, if you ask me about securities law, about assembling a company, about picking a jurisdiction, picking a legal entity, I'm very, very well versed in that because I've been doing it for 35 years. My whole adult life, really, with the trading markets, trading stocks, frequency of trading and market making and derivatives and all that kind of stuff. It's what I've been doing. I had to study for a lot of exams in the financial world, right? So, and you have this continuing education thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to get 30 credits every 3 years, and I also became a CLE provider.
Right. So tell us about that because I know it's something you've been doing lately. I saw you just got invited to do a CLA class, right, out in the West Coast.
Yeah, I was in Sarasota about 2 weeks ago doing a presentation to the Sarasota County Bar Association. So I basically created a 1-credit course that I got approved by the Florida Bar, and I run around to different bar associations, sometimes online, virtually, and sometimes in person. And I'm doing a big one with the Miami-Dade Bar Association on April 4th. So I go around sharing my mission, my passion. I'm able to give the lawyers some CLE credit.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it's weird. It's been a weird. I really feel like I hit my stride. Everything that happened to me up until this point, that we're sitting here, I totally believe happened for a reason, right? I didn't pass the bar exam, right? And it was
in L.A.,
in California, right?
In Florida, you did.
Yeah, and here's the weird thing,
You might have stayed in California if you would have passed
I
that bar.
almost certainly would have done. I had a good friend of mine. He was taking the bar exam for the third time when I was taking it for the first time. He had been a public defender in Dade when I was prosecutor in Palm Beach. And I think what we were hoping for is that we'd both pass. We'd open up a criminal defense practice in California. Now, he's in Oakland, one of the most crime-ridden parts of California. He's been killing it.
I can imagine.
He's making a fortune. So, but my destiny was elsewhere. And I think that's because if you think about it, if I hadn't come back, we wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have met my wife. None of that would have happened.
It's true.
I would have been miserable, single, wealthy, chasing all those beautiful women in California.
Well,
and
you never know.
And it would have been a horrible existence. But the universe had different ideas for me.
I like to say that God is a master planner. And oftentimes he's got a better plan for us than we have for ourselves.
It's true.
And it puts you through a lot of pain, a lot of hardships. And, some of the guys that I follow on social media, they say, pray for pain. Pray for hard times because that's God coming to you personally and giving you lessons. And keep your eyes open and be mindful and be aware because you're being
pushed in a certain direction.
Redirected from greater powers. And, I believe all that stuff. I mean, it's and I've been highs and lows and all that kind of thing. So now you come to America. You're 21 years old. You're Michigan. Go to Michigan undergrad, great school, right? A famous school. Larry's daughter, my partner, friend of ours, Larry. His daughter's there now at the Ross School. I like that, the Ross School.
Named after Stephen Ross, who owns the Dolphins.
Correct. And great school. And you come back to Florida, where it's sunny. You thought out a little bit. You went to Nova Law School. What was that about?
Well, so, my father said to me, has always sort of preached, listen, if you become a licensed professional, right? He said, you'll always make a living, right? You won't have to struggle. And, after I got done with undergrad, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I said, okay, maybe I'm going to go to law school. And I took the LSAT. I did horribly on it, but somehow I got into Nova. And I did 2 years. I remember the end of my second year, thinking there's no way I'm coming back for my third year. First of all, I had very little passion for the law. I didn't really understand how all this stuff really worked together. And at the time, I was clerking for a very large PI firm in Broward County. And so I was supposed to spend the summer clerking for this PI firm. And in the fall, which would have been the first semester of my third year, I was going to be a certified legal intern at the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. So they make you take certain classes, you get the certification, and you can basically do everything the lawyers do, including trying cases.
Wow.
So we're 1 week into my summer internship with this PI firm. I got into a bit of a brouhaha with one of the senior partners, and they fired me. I got fired, right?
What'd you do?
Well, so I had this whole, I basically had the whole summer mapped out, and now I had nothing to do.
Right, crazy.
So I called a professor of mine, who ironically was a Michigan grad, and I'm still in contact with to this day. And I said, Professor, that internship I'm supposed to start in September, any chance I could start it early? He said, well, it's the beginning of June. When do you want to start it? I said, how about Monday?
Wow.
So I did. I spent 6 months interning at the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. Wow. I did a dozen jury trials. I did an appellate argument. I was the most successful intern they'd ever had. But I knew 5 minutes into my first real trial, that was where I was supposed to be. And it completely reignited my passion for being a lawyer. So I was there from June of 93 to Jan 94. I went back to school in January of 94, popped out in May. They hired me. They had actually hired me in April because they wanted to hire me, so they did, and I spent 5 years there. And so, like I said, the universe moves in strange ways.
Isn't that interesting?
And that partner, that prick that fired me, I don't even think he's there anymore. He's probably drunken in an alleyway somewhere. And I went on to have a successful legal career. So I guess the motto is, be careful how you treat people, right? 'Cause you never know.
Listen, it's a very, very important thing to know, because the same people that you pass on the way up, you pass on the way down.
Yep.
God forbid, but God willing too. So all right, so now you're a lawyer. You're a real lawyer. You're a prosecutor.
Yeah, I was prosecutor for 5 years.
And where was this?
In Palm Beach County. I worked for State Attorney Barry Krischer.
Okay.
Who, in my opinion, is probably the finest state attorney we've had here in Palm Beach County.
And
at least in my lifetime.
In that capacity, what were you doing? Who were you prosecuting, essentially?
So I spent the first couple of years in the county court. So you're prosecuting, basic misdemeanor cases, anything that could get somebody sentenced up to a year in the county jail. And then they promoted me to a felony trial division, which was good. And there were 3 prosecutors assigned to the trial division. So I was in one of those divisions. Then they opened up a new trial division, and there was just 2 of us. Well, the lady that was senior to me, her son was seriously injured in an accident, so I took her spot, and somebody else came in behind me. So I basically was the lead counsel in this felony trial division. And for the last 18 months I was there, I was trying first and second degree felonies every week for a year and a half straight, and that ended up burning me out. But the experience, phenomenal.
I can't even imagine.
So, you think about it. Every weekend you're prepping for trial. Every night you're prepping for the next day in trial.
Right.
But, you just become a machine, and you just keep trying and trying cases. And, so it was an amazing experience. And one of those cases that I tried where I put a guy away for life ended up being sort of the catalyst where I could jump in and help you. So, who knew?
He's my attorney, everybody. All this experience. No wonder why he's been so good. That's really crazy. It's like when you do anything day in, day out, day in, day out.
You just become sharp at it.
It's like I've been podcasting, just so you know, every day.
And you're
5 days this week. Last week,
and you're
4
comfortable,
days.
right?
It becomes like a part of you. Yeah, I don't really even think about it anymore. Stephanie's like, I didn't send you any material on Mark because you know.
Well, I notice how you do stuff. I notice, right? We always come back to the certain theme. I watch.
Yep.
You got the opening down. But that people think, oh, it's easy. Do it the first couple of times, and it's not so easy.
Right. You got to find your way, and then it's 2 things: hosting a podcast like I am today, versus being on a podcast. And then working with John, hosting a podcast remotely, or being a guest on a podcast remotely. So these are all little sort of things that are part of characteristics of this particular business that I'm in now, that we're in now. And so I'm learning, but I'm really loving it. And I love the repetition. I love getting up every day, preparing for a podcast. I enjoy that. Then doing business around that. But I really am enjoying it. And I'm meeting all kinds of great people. And I'm doing all kinds of very cool things. And one of the cool things is a lot of these people that are podcasting, either interviewing me or we become friends. So I'm getting texts like, when am I going to see you again? Can you come out here? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I have invitations all over the place. Hence, I want to end my probation.
Listen, the podcast only really works if you're able to share sort of somewhat intimate details of your life.
Correct.
And you're willing to share it not just with the host, but also with the audience.
Right.
Otherwise, who needs to listen, right? You can read about it online.
100%.
You're here to learn about me and for me to share some stuff with you that maybe you can't find online.
100%. You want to, if you can, get some sort of a message from a podcast or get some entertainment. There's got to be something in our exchange that the world, which is comprised of people that are interested in, they follow me. You got people follow you. What is it that, is interesting? I think it's very interesting that this man got me out of prison like 2 or 3 times. I mean, 3 times. If you think about how crazy my story is, and that you were there for me. I mean, fighting, going to court, filing. I can't even tell you. Somebody once said to me, "So does Mark? Did he do your appeal?" I said no. He goes, "Oh, I thought Mark tried to get you out of prison." I said he did.
After the appeal was denied.
I said, I'm trying to list the motions. There's a 2255. There's the appeal of the 2255.
There was the 28. Was it 2800?
There's the SB 60, the 60, the A, B, C, D, all the letters.
The FOIA, the
FOIA.
motion.
There's so many different.
There was the habeas petition when they were giving you some
habeas.
The diesel.
So many different motions that the world doesn't understand, and God willing, don't understand. But I just want to let you know, this man was in constant touch with me when I was away, working and helping my family, working and helping me, getting me through the day sometimes. Sometimes the only reason I got through a day or a week was because I knew that I had you out there and I had Stephanie out there trying and fighting for me. I mean, a lot of guys in prison are left for dead. And when you look at them, when you talk to them, they're left for dead. They got nothing. They got nowhere to go. They had no one to email, no one to talk to. It's sad, and it's in some cases it's deserved, and in some cases the government is just so heavy-handed and out of control. I mean, I think you see now, the world is starting to see at the Trump State of the Union, he read where we're sending money, billions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions for the most outrageous, nonsensical bullshit payoffs. And that shows just how out of control the people are that have been running this government. That nobody's been able to identify all this fraud, waste, abuse. But I mean, when they start to see what has been done in the criminal justice system by the BOP, by the probation departments, by the prosecutors, the people that are in charge of government, that engineered all these payoffs and all these nonsense, these budget line items that our president was able to read off, that guys like Elon Musk and Doge have identified and now have cut out. So there's a lot of craziness that goes on, and we have been a part of that together. And for that, I am incredibly indebted to you, and I love you as a person because of the things, you go through life, and what is a friend? What is a buddy? What is a comrade, a pal, a chum? And it's not just somebody you go out with and have a couple of beers with. It's somebody that you endure personal situations with. You go through. I'll never forget, at your wedding. My brother here recently got married.
It's only 6 or 7. Now, this is 25 years from the first marriage.
Well, we're going to get into a few of these things, yeah. But
I said, they're going to learn some intimate details about me.
But I just want to say, I was still doing my sentence.
I just want to say this. We delayed the wedding, right?
Well, I'm going to share this part. So I'm invited to the wedding, and I'm excited, but I'm nervous because my sentence ends January 10th. He gets married, which is a Monday. Well, he gets married like January 7th.
It was the 6th. It was the day before my birthday.
Okay. He gets married 4 days before the end of my 12-year sentence. Okay. And I get permission to attend the wedding. I'm wearing an ankle monitor. And so I'm getting ready for the wedding. And I call in to let them know that I'm leaving the house. Because I have to call before I leave the house. Then when I get where I'm going, I have to call and say I've arrived safely, and they're monitoring me the whole time to see if I'm deviating. That's the word they use, deviating. I never deviate. To make a long story short, I call up. Stephanie's ready. I'm ready. And they say, you're not going anywhere. I said, what do you mean? I said, this has been approved for a month. I don't see anything. Because that's how they operate. They don't do shit. They say okay, and they didn't amend the file. I said, you don't understand. My attorney's getting married. My attorney. There's going to be 5 judges there, prosecutors, maybe your boss. And I
We
said,
did have a couple of judges there.
yes, we did. At my table, it was all judges and people from the court, right? And I said, I got to get approval. There's something wrong. It's been approved. Says, Mr. Mandel, lower your voice. I'm sorry. There's nothing in the computer. Stephanie's going, forget it. Shut your mouth. Stop. She's afraid that they're going to extend my sentence because I'm really going off on this guy. I said, this is bullshit. I'm approved to go. I double checked and triple checked. I take care of my side of the business. And he says, I'm sorry. And I'm like, who can I speak to? I said, Mr. Mandel, it was like a Saturday night or something. He says, it's Saturday night. Who are we going to call? There's nobody around. I said, I start going crazy on him. Stephanie, like, please stop. Mark will understand. And finally, we ended up tracking down somebody through the halfway house. And they said, okay, Mr. Mandel, you can go. You got 3 hours. And I'm watching so we get in the car. Now, we're late. We get in the car. We drive over there. And I call you and say, listen, we're parking the car. I'm sorry, bro. I had this. And you're like, I'm not getting married till you're here.
I was standing outside the house saying,
yeah,
let's go.
And we walk in, we run in, and the whole wedding is waiting. He's not walking down the aisle until Ross is
12 years to get remarried, really. It wasn't just a couple minutes.
It's exactly right. It's crazy, bro. And it was a beautiful wedding.
It was an intimate little wedding at my in-laws' house.
It was special.
Family and just literally a few friends.
A few hundred friends,
We had 40 people for the whole thing. That was it.
It was just so intimate, so beautiful, special. And he made a speech. Now, I've always wondered about Mark's ability to orate, Mark's ability to carry a crowd. I know that he's a killer. He's a fighter. He could take out any 3 thugs with knives and batons and stuff. But he speaks beautifully. He's got a beautiful accent. But I was never sure of your ability to orate in front of a crowd. I never had the experience with you. I never saw you on trial. Speak to a jury, whatever, a room full of people. But you made a speech on your wedding night, which was one of the most captivating speeches of all time. I loved it. And Michigan went ahead and won the national championship earlier that week.
I got married on the 6th. I had my 56th birthday on the 7th. And then the following day, Michigan won the national championship.
The national championship.
Possibly the greatest 3-day run of the history of mankind.
It was right up there.
It's up there, right?
That was right up there for you. Big events, one after the next. And I was so blown away how you addressed the crowd and carried the message that you wanted to share with everybody. And you could feel that you were swaying the crowd, steering the crowd the way you wanted them to go. And that was so great, bro. It was just so special. Now, so that was not your first wedding now, was it?
It was not.
Okay. So, there were rumors about you when I first met you.
I was wild.
I heard that you were wild.
My wife knows there's nothing she doesn't know about me. She married me despite the wildness.
Okay, well, she's you sowed your oats, as they say, right?
I just wasn't ready.
Unlike me, a conservative man.
Yeah, right. All right.
Mark was known as the player's player.
Was that really?
You were
I'm going to blush
as a
now.
man that didn't miss a babe. You were good looking. Someone once said to me, he's got a little red Porsche or something.
I probably did at the time.
And I would go from place to place, and I'd run into some woman, and they'd say, you know Mark Astor? I said, I do. She goes, well, I know him too. You know what I mean? It was a crazy thing. Your reputation was, and I'm sure it was well earned.
Oh, it was.
Now, you got married. Do you remember what year?
So I got married. I'm 58 now. The first time around, I got married when I was 34.
It's a good age.
I was divorced at 35.
You got married. Who was the lucky woman?
Well, I won't mention her by name.
Okay.
Ironically, I heard she moved back to town recently, but she was much younger than me. She was 26, I was 34, and
That makes sense.
I wasn't nearly ready to be married. I thought I was, and there were some things that went on in the marriage that were really my fault. I was not a good husband.
Did you have a wedding?
Yeah, we had a beautiful wedding. My former in-laws made a beautiful wedding for us at the Breakers.
Oh, goodness.
It was magnificent. We had 160 people. There was a beautiful wedding. We had
That's
beautiful
a real
weekend.
wedding.
It was. We had a rehearsal dinner. They also made us an engagement party. My former in-laws absolutely spoiled us. They were terrific. They could not have been nicer. I mean, I was very blessed. But the wedding went. Things went south. And
Where was your honeymoon, if you don't mind me asking?
Hawaii. Went to Hawaii.
I asked the question because I knew the answer, and Hawaii has been a hotbed for you.
It's not been a good place to go. I'm not taking this wife to Hawaii, and she knows why.
The audience doesn't know, so I have to get around to this. It's very funny. So you went on a honeymoon with your first wife, 25 years ago. More than that now, right? No, it's 25 years, right? You're 58 right now, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
Right. So you hit all the different islands.
We went to Maui and Kauai.
Okay.
It's beautiful there.
I did that as well. What went wrong, if you don't mind me asking?
I felt suffocated, I'll be honest with you.
So I went to Hawaii with a young woman, and I also had a feeling when I got back from Hawaii, like it's over.
Listen, it wouldn't. I don't think it would have mattered where we go. I just wasn't ready to be married. I don't think I even had any expectation of what being married was. I think I got married for very different reasons, and there was other things going on in my life that I wasn't happy with. I think as a man,
you were an attorney at the time.
I was, but I was working with a family business. I wasn't happy generally.
With yourself.
Correct. I wasn't happy.
Not necessarily her.
No, I think
we love the in-laws.
Yeah, I don't think like I said. I mean, I take full responsibility for the failure of the marriage. I do. I owned it, and I do own it. So, but I wasn't a happy individual, and it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I was happy in my own. As my own person.
In your own skin.
Right, in my own skin, where I could say, okay, now I'm ready to commit to somebody else. And I got married for very different reasons this time.
Okay, so let's think back. We're going back to this. So you were married for a total of 1 year. Mm-hmm. That was it?
I was out of the house after 8 months.
You got a house?
So I had a house down here in Delray. She had a house in West Palm. And we said, okay, we'll put both on the market. Whichever one sells first, we'll move into the other one.
Okay.
My house was gone within a couple of weeks. And I moved in with her. And 8 months later, I moved back out. I ended up moving back in with my parents.
Okay. But was it a friendly split or not really?
Not really.
She was bitter a little bit.
She was bitter, and understandably so.
I understand that, yeah.
And she
probably loved you very much.
She had every reason to be bitter.
And you were just like, what did Lionel tell you?
It's funny. I remember sitting at my parents' breakfast. One morning it was breakfast, and I was sitting at my the table. And my mom said to me, do you think you want to give it a second go?
Ah, okay.
And I said to my mother, and I'll never forget it. I even think I remember I was wearing like a robe. And I said to my mother, I said, I don't know why, but I know I can't go back. I just had a feeling that I couldn't go back.
Now, your mother is the epitome of class, refinement, and a real woman. And that was a good question, I think. Maybe they were all hopeful you just had to take a time out.
Well, interestingly enough, I ended up moving, not long after that, I ended up moving to D.C. The divorce really took a toll on me, I think, emotionally.
I can imagine.
It did. And you say, well, it was only a year, so how bad could it have been? I put myself, so the week after the divorce, I actually went on a cruise for a week. And for the first 3 days, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed.
Crazy.
I was so devastated. And then, so I'd come back, and then I ended up, that was the year, I took a year, so I took a year off. 2004, I took a year off from everything. From life, from practice, I moved up to D.C., that's where I discovered Krav Maga. And I spent a year, I was in school getting my master's, which I really, really wanted to do.
What you get your master's in?
It's in law and government, so It's an extra year of law school, basically. And I also spent a year, I worked on John Kerry's presidential campaign.
I wouldn't advertise that. I'm playing.
Well, listen, I voted for both sides. I wouldn't vote for him again, but
right.
I'd worked on Barry Krish's re-election campaign. I had a passion for politics.
Right.
I was really
It's still to this day.
yeah, I was really ticked off about the whole Iraq War. I thought that was a bullshit war that we shouldn't have been in.
It was.
And I'd met Kerry a couple of times down here. He seemed like he was a straight shooter, pro-Israel, all that stuff. I think he had, if you look at his history, I think on his, I can't remember which side of the family, because he's a Catholic guy, but somewhere along the line, on one side of the family, they were Jews. So he sort of had this affinity for the Jewish community. And I started off as a volunteer at his campaign headquarters in D.C. By the time it was all done, I was part of the legal team. I was part of his advanced team. So every weekend I was either with him or with Edwards, who was his VP candidate.
Yep.
And it was an amazing year. And I worked on the campaign. I worked out. I trained. I dated. And then, of course, he didn't win the election. And so the year was up. I was done with my degree, and I had to come home.
So it was an experience.
It was an amazing experience. Yeah, and that was a year. I mean, I went into my own pocket to pay for it, but I needed that year. I just needed it.
I understand, and that's it's you have a lot of self-awareness that you were able to somehow come to grips with that. I mean, and the marriage, you changed your address, you went into a completely different environment with different people and doing different things, and back to school, experienced all these different things. Some of which you've brought forward to you've carried through to your life now. It's not like the end of it. You didn't shut the door on your interest in law, politics, government. You might have walked across the aisle. Krav Maga has been something that's really. I think that's been a very
it's been
something
empowering
in your life that's very, very important to you.
It's been empowering for me. But I think now more than anything, I enjoy teaching because that empowers other people.
It does. And you're a great teacher, by the way.
Thanks.
He's great. He's scary. That good. He's that good.
And I think I've sort of carried that idea of empowerment into our law firm that I have with my wife. So
we're going to get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Because if I'm not mistaken, and I got to check my notes here, my scorecard. There's another marriage in there or engagement or something, that happened. And we're going to revisit the idea of Hawaii, because somewhere in that 25 year
we're really going to get intimate here, aren't we?
Well, I
listen. I don't have a problem with that. I have no secrets.
Right.
I got married like I said, for very different reasons. There's nothing about me my wife doesn't know about me. So my cards are all out on the table, and she loves me despite it. She knows my faults, and I own my faults. I own my mistakes too, and I think that's important. I think when you do that, then you got nothing to hide.
So I get an email once, and then I call you on the phone that you're crazy about somebody.
I met this younger woman.
Yep. It always starts with I met a younger woman. That's how many male stories start with that?
Well, listen,
I get it.
I had been on with my now wife. I'd been on and off with her for 6 or 7 years.
Yes.
And there were other women. I wasn't ready to make a commitment to anybody. I still was enjoying the single life. And I met this girl who was a little bit younger than me, quite a bit younger than me, and she had all the things that a visual creature like us men like.
Yep.
And I was smitten. And I even got engaged to her, but it was
got engaged?
I did, and I went to Hawaii with her.
You went to Hawaii.
I did, like I said, Hawaii.
Great story.
Hawaii's not a good place for me to
really
go.
great
My wife is
story.
never going to go to Hawaii with me.
I'm telling you, it's a great story though, because there's a common thread with this Hawaii thing.
Well, I think for me it was I don't know if I would call it the last hurrah. It was the last nudge from the universe that I was going in the wrong direction. And that's not a knock on the girl, because it wasn't her fault. Again, I take responsibility for it. The time I met her, she was with somebody else. And, but it was very clear as time went on that our lives were just going, she wanted to go that way and I wanted to go this way. Right. And I think the age difference has something to do with it.
Well, I'd like to say the most important thing I learned when I was in therapy in a relationship were common goals. And I said to Dr. Knauer, I said, why common goals? He goes, Ross, doesn't matter if lost passion. Over time, everybody grows apart. But if you're growing apart, at least you're drifting in the same direction. So there's a chance you could reconnect.
That's so true.
There's a bridge, common goals. And so when I met Stephanie, and she has all the visual things that men crave, but we had common goals. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to raise the kids and take care of her husband and all his stuff, his home stuff. and I wanted to stay in. I met her in business. She worked for me, and I wanted to go to work, and I wanted to produce great business and be able to dote these things on my family. The girl I was with when I met Stephanie was a career woman. She wanted to be a doctor, and she wanted to have the biggest, dental office in Manhattan.
There was another woman in the picture, right?
All these different things, always. And Stephanie was in. There's a young woman came into the picture who wanted the same things that I did. And so, and even though we've had this giant eruption in the middle of our marriage, in the middle of our family, we're still going in the same direction. Even though we're a little apart and we're divorced, we're very close because we're still going in the same direction as individuals and as a family. We have common goals. And I think that's really was such brilliant advice I got. So now you meet this woman, and I'll never forget. You got engaged. You tell me you're going to wait to marry her until I come out of prison. And you take her to Hawaii for 2 weeks.
She worked for a pharmaceutical company, and she was one of the top salespeople, and she won this competition to go to Hawaii, and I went, and that was the beginning of the end.
And then you came back and said it's over.
Pretty much, I think within a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, this isn't going to work.
What did they do to you over there, my brother?
I don't know. There must be something. What are those Hawaiian drinks they give you? They must be spiking mine.
It's like the most. They try and make it very romantic and because a lot of honeymooners.
Hawaii's beautiful.
Beautiful.
No question.
It's beautiful.
I don't think it was the fault of Hawaii. I think it was on me.
Well, it's something that Hawaii represents to you. It's a place where you.
I keep going with the wrong women. That's what it represents.
Maybe. I think maybe you go with the wrong guy.
Maybe I'm the wrong guy to go to Hawaii.
I'm saying, you come. It's so perfect an environment that you actually, come to grips with some things about yourself, where you say, no, this is not the right thing to do. But I love it. It's a great story, and I remember saying, what the fuck? I remember saying, what about Audra? Because I know you always loved Audra.
Listen, when I
know you always loved her, and I know she always loved you.
Listen, I remember when I bumped into you. When you were on your ankle monitor, you were going out to California. I was going back because I lived there for 3 years. There was another girl that I was like, gaga over. Right? Another, and it was the same thing, right? I was smitten. It was all the passion, all this other bullshit, but there was no substance to it.
I understand.
There was no substance to it.
It's like a shot of heroin, they tell me.
You
know what I mean? It feels great for a minute.
I've never used it, but that's what it must feel like.
Great for a minute.
It's that high, right?
It's that
high.
Dopamine.
It was the dopamine rush with both of those girls. And again, that's not a rub on either one of them. That's on me. But
now, while you were dabbling, let's just say, with this, if I remember, she was Italian.
Both the girls that I was crazy about, and my ex-wife. She was a Jewish girl, but she was born and raised in Italy. She lived there.
When you speak, I pay attention.
She lived there till she was 7. The whole family spoke fluent Italian. I think I must have been in a past life. I must have lived in Rome. I have this thing for Italian women, Italian cars, Italian food.
I understand. Me too. Isn't that funny? Me too. And but Audra has been a mainstay in your life for more than 10 years. Yes.
Yeah.
More than 10 years.
Yeah. This time I married my best friend.
Tell us about Audra.
What can I tell you about my wife?
I want to hear. Where'd you meet her? How'd you meet her?
So, I told you I started the business out of the library because I had no money.
Yes.
And the first year I took criminal cases because I had a background doing criminal work. I took a couple of family law cases that I co-counseled with a friend from law school. I basically took anything I could to pay the bills. The very first case I had was a student athlete at a university here in Florida. Him and another boy got in some serious trouble, a bit like the Jameis Winston case. They were scholarship student athletes.
Right.
They were accused of sexually assaulting a female student, the two of them together. And not only was his scholarship at risk, but they were obviously, if this went criminal and they charged him with sexual battery, he'd go to prison for the rest of his life. And, at the time it seemed like a very large fee, which I think inevitably I probably spent it all on gas money and hotels going backwards and forwards. But I had just enough money to get an office over here on the corner of Glaze and Federal. And I always remember this. The office was just a little bit bigger than the desk, so I could actually open the door and walk around and sit behind the desk. And I still have an office there today. But I met Audra.
Now you have your mail sent there, right?
Yeah. And we still use the office occasionally if a client wants to meet with us. But I met her at a networking event. She was working with some other lawyer there, and we met. And I started spending time with her because she's very beautiful, very brilliant. But I wasn't looking to get serious with anybody.
Right.
I mean, there were other things I was serious about, but settling down wasn't one of them.
Right. It's time to make money, build a business.
Build a business, and and I enjoyed the single life. I was happy. I was free. I could do whatever I want. I didn't have to answer to anybody.
Something nice about it. I'm like that right now, and I love it. I hate to say it.
But as my father used to say, romance without finance is ignorance. And so I
love that.
Right?
Romance
without finance
is
ignorance.
Equals ignorance.
Right?
That's
and so
the best.
I was starting to make a few dollars, which meant I could afford to take a girl out on a date, and so we did. And it took me. I think the sidetracking with this last girl was what finally nudged me in the right direction, which made me realize just how important she was for me.
She's your rock.
She's absolutely my rock, 100%.
She's your North Star.
There's no question. She is the foundation of everything.
Yes,
she is,
and it gives you the freedom, the confidence,
right. I don't feel tied down.
I understand.
I never feel like I'm like, oh God, I gotta have space.
Right.
It just works.
Right.
It really does. It just works. I mean, like when I came out to Vegas with the guys, I said, listen, I need to be there. She's like, fine, okay, no problem. Until I went to pick you up from the airport. Right. And, obviously there's a level of trust, which I had to regain because I had, I'd lost that for a while. Right.
I understand.
I had lost the trust for a little while after what I did with the last girl.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
So,
we are not saints. You know what I mean? We're reformed sinners. But
thank God there isn't really a hell.
There's a quality that Audra has that I see. It's just lovely. When someone asks me what's Mark's girlfriend like, I don't know what to say. She's tall. She's blonde. She's got a great figure.
She's got, what it is? She's very much like my, they say you marry your parents.
Your mom.
She's got my mother's sweet heart, right?
So sweet.
She's got there's a certain
a goodness about her.
Goodness and softness and sweetness
100%.
and loving about her.
I love that.
That she
very
has.
much so.
And that I think is something you either have or you don't, right?
Yeah, you can't fake that, by the way.
She's also a brilliant lawyer, my wife. I mean, a much better lawyer than me. And so to have that intellectual
you're
equality,
allowed you to be in business together.
Well, I mean,
you're in a full relationship.
I wouldn't have been able to build my business without her.
I believe
there's
that.
no question about it. I mean, I tell everybody. They say, "What's the secret to building your business?" I said, "My wife."
Yes.
They said, "What do you mean?" I said, "She's my secret weapon."
I love it.
She runs the business. I let her run the business. She's much better at it than me. I'm good at making the phone ring, but as far as running the day-to-day operation of the business, I let my wife do it. She's phenomenal.
That's so great.
She's
now my daughter's running a business.
Yeah, she will be very soon. I need to get her through law school quickly. So I can retire.
It's so funny. It's great. I love it. I love it. I love it. And, these are people that I hold very dear to me. I'm not just here talking to my audience, making up a story. This is one of my rocks, Mr. Mark Astor.
I think your audience has learned more about me than, the only other person other than you and my wife, maybe is my mum that knows this about me.
Correct.
Who else knows all this stuff about me? I never talk publicly about.
You're very quiet. You're very humble. You keep to yourself. You're not a loudmouth. When you do speak, it's usually meaningful. It's really meaningful. So this is great. So you tell us about your law firm. You have a highly specialized law firm today. It's unlike anything.
This is separate apart from being your consigliere, basically.
Correct.
Right? Which I basically am, and I'm proud to say that.
There's no question.
So our law firm, the mission of the law firm is to save families whose loved ones have substance use.
To save families.
To save families whose loved ones have substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery.
Wow.
So we speak to families from all over the country, as far west as Hawaii, as far north as you can go, and occasionally outside of the country. We've had clients in Italy and Panama, and they call us because there's somebody in the family, typically an adult child, 25 to 45, who's got a long history of drug use, mental illness, treatment that doesn't work, medications that don't work, or they won't take their meds, or they've been to the emergency room for an overdose, or all of the above. And they're like, hey, can you fix this? Because we can't take it anymore. And the answer is yes, but it takes a little time. And so I have a whole law firm that's built around providing the services, legal, clinical, and what I call law enforcement services that are necessary to get somebody into treatment and keep them there long enough in the right facility.
Or get them out of a facility if it's
uncalled
for.
So I lost my dad 8 years ago, I lost my dad, it was 11 months after I opened up the law firm. So I think one of the things that is upsetting is he's not
to witness this.
He's not able to see this. I mean, I think
He's
that
watching. Don't kid yourself.
I hopefully
Lionel's got a big screen wherever he is. He's
probably
watching everything. He's
Right,
checking
he's
in on
definitely
everything.
watching this, and I cannot believe this shit.
How great.
So, so yeah, we're helping families, from all over the country, and it's the most rewarding work I've done since I left the state attorney's office. And I told you I was lost for a while. After I left the prosecutor's office, I made a lot more money, but I was miserable, just completely miserable.
I get it. I understand. It's
didn't
not
have-
about money.
Listen, if you have purpose
Exactly.
and you focus on that purpose and you have a mission and you push on that mission, you push. At some point, someone will say to you, you know what? I like that mission, and I think you could help somebody that I know, and they'll pay you to do it.
Yep.
So we focus on the mission first, and the money comes. Because in 16, I was broke. Now I have the ability to, we took the kids skiing over Christmas to
Yep.
Utah. Not that I skied a whole lot, but, there was a time when I couldn't have afforded to take that trip. I just didn't have it.
I say like this: if you focus on money, you'll never have any. If you focus on being great at something, if you focus on greatness, you'll have all the money coming in, and money finds you. It's really, you have to have that kind of purpose, and you are great at what you do. You are, to my knowledge, I don't know any other firm, legal or otherwise, that does what you do and has your level of expertise on drug and alcohol rehabilitation and family law and the Marchman Act, the Baker Act. It's like, holy macanoli.
It's like everything that I ever did in life came together and helped me to put this law firm together.
And you're a beast. You do law enforcement interventions, right? You go find kids and
Well, so I built part of the firm was modeled after how we at the state attorney's office. So when I was prosecutor, we had our own internal police force. So I wanted to have that in our firm. So I have a retired cop on staff. John is a retired federal agent, and he's got a team of investigators. I can find somebody pretty much anywhere. He went down to Mexico to get somebody for me. So a lot of the time, if I can get a pickup order from a judge, we'll go do the pickup. I'll find the person, get them picked up. We work closely with law enforcement because I still have all these old connections, and it has really paid dividends.
I love it. Yeah. So essentially, you have the ability to find and track people down, right? Using law enforcement and
Yep.
people on staff and connections, et cetera.
Yeah, sometimes you get a call from a family and they'll tell you, this is what's been going on with my loved one. Well, where are they? We're not really sure. Okay, if we have a general idea,
Right.
let's get a court order and we'll go find them. We'll go get them.
Now, what does a court order say?
Well, so normally some form of pickup order. So it's civil in nature, but it's a bit like an arrest warrant in a
It
criminal
allows
case.
you to go pick somebody up, so to
Yeah,
speak.
so it basically authorizes the police to go get somebody. But if I wait for the police to do it because they just don't have the resources,
Right, good luck.
Yeah, it's going to take too long. I want it done now. So I'll say, John, here's the court order. Go find them, and then when you get them, call whoever you need to call to get 2 deputies out there or 2 officers out there and get this person picked up. And that we find is a game changer.
So my kid is smoking crack and running around with bad people doing bad things. You're going to help find that kid, and you're going to help get her into treatment, really against her will, because she's not making decisions for herself that are intelligent and safe.
Think about it this way. When somebody has a behavioral health issue, what's really going on is their brain's been kidnapped.
I love that.
Their brain has been kidnapped.
I get medicated, kidnapped.
And as such, they are not capable of making a decision to save themselves. If they could, they would. So if they can't make the decision to save themselves, who's going to? Is it mom and dad? Is it somebody else? Whoever it is.
Right.
So you have to empower the parents or whoever it is so they can start making the decision their loved one can't make. And if you give them all that authority, that power, now they can say, okay, I know you can't make the decision to save yourself, so I'm going to make it for you.
I love it. I love it. And that's where you get into like the receiverships and all these different things, right? Where guardianships.
Yeah, so we're predominantly working under 3 statutes. The Marchman Act, guardianship, which was really designed for elderly people, but my brilliant wife decided we could use it for our cases, and the Baker Act. And sometimes, depending on the case, all 3 at the same time. So things can get hectic. I tell families the one thing that's predictable about their kind of case is it's unpredictable. People go missing, they walk out of treatment, they have a relapse. And so we have to deal with that. And there's obviously, the families are emotional when they come to us, and understandably so.
Yeah.
So, dealing with all those components, and of course, in the last 10 years, I've built out the staff. I have a team now so that when families need us, they can call and get somebody on the phone.
React.
And we can respond accordingly.
Right.
So,
and I would think that, it shouldn't be lost on people. You know, you would think a lot of like poor people or people that are in poverty and bad neighborhoods, but think about a lot. I know so many wealthy people who have a family member that just went off like the deep end, right? Drugs, alcohol, acting out in crazy, life-threatening ways.
Listen, I've put a number of lawyers in treatment.
I believe that. I get it. I have a lot of people that come to me because of my story with drugs and alcohol coming out of the brokerage world. And they call me up and say, what should we do? We got a guy, he's a big earner, but he's nuts. He's going to explode. You know, this is like a new thing. People coming to me. Well, almost had a few people sent to you.
Well, I would imagine in the Wall Street world, that is, drug use is prevalent. But,
work hard, play hard.
It's not just drug use now. We see so much mental illness.
Mental illness.
Since COVID and the legalization of marijuana here in Florida, the acuity of the cases is off the charts.
Right.
Drug-driven mental illness.
They lock down people. People were locked in their houses. I mean, I don't know what goes on, but, I can't imagine. I was locked in a room in FDC Miami, so I know your mind gets crazy. They had me 7 weeks in solitary.
Well, there's also, I think, there's this misnomer that if you're in, club fed.
Yep.
Right. Oh, club fed. Let me tell you something. There's nothing club about it.
There's no such thing.
It is a prison through and through. There is no.
25 years ago, there was one spot that was like club fed.
Yeah.
But that's just a big misnomer.
Yeah, it is a prison, and
it's horrible. Good luck.
It's horrible.
Food,
the food sucks. You get treated like shit, and the doors are locked solid.
You are brutalized there.
Yep.
Now, so you're doing good. You're helping families today, and I always ask Sydney. I say, "So what are you guys doing?" She goes, "Dad, I can't talk about it."
So the audience knows, right, that you're
she's such a lawyer already.
That your daughter Sydney has been clerking with us.
She goes, I can't say
she's
anything.
She's a natural.
Dad.
She's. I've got her doing legal work that even the paralegals,
it's unbelievable.
She's terrific. Yeah. She's going to law school, which I'm very excited about for her. She's an amazing woman. And I mean, listen, I love you, but you're Stephanie.
Amazing. What a woman.
She was my Erin Brockovich. I mean, really. I think it would be unjust for me to sit here and say, "Oh, I got you out." I would not have gotten you out without Stephanie's help. There's no two ways about it.
The team.
She was my right hand, but there were times, and I remember talking to Audra when we were in the office, and this is the very beginning, and I just said I used to sit there and I would daydream about what it would be like to go to the prison and pick you up, and then that day came, but there were days where I said, I don't know, am I ever going to be able to get him out, because it was such a fight. Right.
Unbelievable.
I really wasn't sure that day would ever come, and and I used to say that to her, I don't know if we can get him out. And she was there and say, we're going to get him out. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep pushing, and we will get him out. And then the miracle of COVID came, and even then,
right. They said no
twice. Right? I had to drag them into federal court.
Yep.
Up in New York, and finally that day came.
Right.
And I remember calling my mom saying, I got him out.
How crazy!
I was like, I can't believe it. We got him out.
He got me out.
He's out,
and you're about to get me fully out now.
I remember calling you saying, "So how's it feeling?" And I'm like, "What are you doing?" You're like, well, "I'm going for a bagel with smoked salmon and cream cheese." You don't understand. I haven't had a real bagel in 9 years.
She came for 2 of those bagels. It was unbelievable. It's true. You can't understand what it's like when you go through. I was just in the parking lot before I came in here today, talking to Stephanie about what's going on, and about different things. And after what I've been through, they just removed all anxiety and fear from me.
What else can they do to you?
That's what I mean. Like, nothing really bothers me anymore.
What else can they take? There's nothing left to take. They took everything.
It's an unbelievable. Well, they don't have my sign.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. I get it.
Your
I
wife,
get it.
your kids, your money, your house,
Everything.
your car, everything.
10 years of my
Everything.
life. And that was what I was incarcerated. But the battle, they came into my brokerage firm in 2006. I'm dealing with this for 19 years every day. 19 years every day. It's draining. It's draining. And when they do terminate this probation, I'm going to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because, it's like, it's
well, I remember when they took you off the monitor. I mean, did you ever... I mean, were there times when you were, whether it was in custody or with a monitor, that you said, Is this ever going to end?
I still feel the monitor. I wore an ankle monitor for years. I still feel it. I'll never forget when I switched it from one leg to the next leg. It was like a big thing, but I still feel it, believe it or not. It's the craziest thing. And the monitors, those are the good days, because when you're wearing a monitor, it means you're not in prison. Think about that. When you have an ankle monitor on, I used to have to carry this big transponder. It was like a shoe on my belt. But, it's just like, those are good days when you have the monitor, because that means you're not in prison. You're out. You're in the real world, to some extent. But I just want to say, Mark, it was so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
How does everybody find you?
So,
I have to say, not that I'm here to be critical of you, but what's going on with Instagram? Mark Astor, there's no picture. I can't give you messages.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to look into that.
You got to tighten up.
I got to get my. Well, listen. I'm now playing catch up with you.
You're a
You
social
are
media guy.
You are now omnipresent. You know that, right?
I'm everywhere.
You are everywhere.
It's crazy.
And you're just getting warmed up.
Yes.
This is just the foreplay, as they say.
It's the calm before the storm.
It really is.
It's going to get really wild.
So our main website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com.
It's quite a big.
If they just Google Mark G. Astor.
Mark G. Astor.
I'm not as omnipresent as you, but there's quite a lot of content
The
out
Astor
there.
Law Firm?
You can Google Mark Astor, yeah.
Mark Astor, Mark G. Astor.
So,
social media?
So I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Under your name?
And Twitter, yeah.
Mark Astor?
Actually, you could look under Mark Astor. Or
There's also the Astor Simovich Law
So
Firm.
Simovich is my wife, so look under Astor Simovich.
I'm not going to try and spell Simovich.
She's now Audra Simovich Astor.
Yeah, boy. It's a crazy name, Simovich.
So.
It could be Audra Sims. But I get it. But I just want to tell you that I love you very much. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. This is.
If you want to know about a real man, an expert in Krav Maga, a world-class human being, my brother, my family member, Mark G. Astor. Check him out. He's an amazing guy. I love him. I depend on him. And he is the man. He is a giant amongst men. Thank you for tuning in today.
Thanks, Ross.